Have you ever felt alone and hopeless, even when surrounded by people? In moments of despair, it's easy to forget what truly matters. In Psalm 34, verse 18, we find a message of profound comfort. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Today, I will show you how this promise can transform your life and bring comfort in difficult times. On days when darkness seems to envelop everything around us, it's normal to feel alone in our pain. Loneliness often isn't the absence of people around us, but the feeling that no one understands what we're going through. It's in these moments that we need to remember that God is always present, even when we feel most distant from Him. Psalm 34, verse 18 assures us that He is near to those who are brokenhearted, showing that our pain does not go unnoticed by the Lord. The promise that God is close gives us the certainty that, even in the darkest moments, He does not abandon us. It is comforting to know that when our spirit is crushed, God is there to lift us up. Often, in times of difficulty, we tend to withdraw from everything and everyone, including God. We feel that our pain is too great, that our sorrow is too deep to be understood or comforted. But the truth is that God understands every tear we shed and every pain we carry in our hearts. It is important to recognize that pain is a part of life and that everyone, at some point, will go through moments of anguish and suffering. However, what makes a difference is how we deal with these moments. When we turn to God, we allow Him to enter our hearts and heal our wounds. Psalm 34, verse 18, is not just a promise of comfort, but also an invitation to draw closer to God, to surrender our pains and sufferings to Him, knowing that He is ready to embrace us and give us the strength we need. Often, we try to handle our difficulties alone, believing that we are strong enough to face any adversity. However, it is in our weakness that God's strength is revealed. When we acknowledge that we cannot do everything on our own, we open up space for God to act in our lives. The Lord is always willing to help us, but we need to be willing to accept His help. The first step is to recognize our fragility and allow God to guide us. Psalm 34, verse 18 reminds us that God is near to those who have a broken heart. This means that He is closest to us in moments when we are most vulnerable. It is in this moment of vulnerability that we experience the true power of God in our lives. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable before Him, we pave the way for the healing and comfort that only He can offer. God does not expect us to be strong all the time. He understands our weaknesses and is ready to sustain us. Sometimes it is difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when we are in the midst of a storm. But God's promise is that He is always with us, even in the most challenging moments. He does not leave us alone in our pain, but accompanies us every step of the way. Psalm 34, verse 18, gives us the assurance that even when everything seems lost, God is there, ready to rescue us and give us a new beginning. He is the anchor that keeps us steady amid the storms of life. When we look at Psalm 34, verse 18, we see that it is not only about God's comfort, but also about His salvation. God not only comforts us in our moments of pain, but He also saves us. He brings us out of the darkness and back into the light. This salvation is not just spiritual, but also emotional. God heals our wounds, restores our strength, and gives us a new purpose in life. He turns our pain into strength and our despair into hope. God's promise to be close to the brokenhearted is a reminder that our pain is never in vain. God uses every painful experience to shape and strengthen us. He teaches us to rely more on Him and to trust in His will, even when we don't understand the reasons behind our suffering. Psalm 34, verse 18 shows us that although pain is an inevitable part of life, it is also an opportunity for growth and transformation. When we trust in God, He gives us the strength to overcome any challenge. In moments of despair, it is easy to get lost in the midst of pain and forget that God is by our side. But Psalm 34, verse 18 reminds us that we are never alone. God is always present, ready to comfort and save us. He is our rock in times of trouble and our refuge in times of distress. When we turn to Him for comfort, we find not only relief for our pain, but also new hope for the future. God turns our sorrow into joy and our weakness into strength. It is important to remember that God's comfort does not mean that we will never face difficulties. On the contrary, the Bible teaches us that everyone will go through tribulations at some point in life. But the difference for those who trust in God is that they will never face these difficulties alone. God is always by our side, ready to sustain and guide us. Psalm 34 verse 18 gives us the assurance that even when everything seems to be falling apart around us, God is our firm foundation, keeping us standing amid the storms. The promise that God is close to the brokenhearted invites us to a life of faith and trust. This means believing that even when we cannot see the way ahead, God is guiding us. It is trusting that even when we do not understand why we are going through certain situations, God has a purpose for everything. Psalm 34 verse 18 encourages us to surrender our worries to God, knowing that He is in control of all things. He promises us not only comfort, but also direction and wisdom to face the challenges of life. Often, we think that we need to be strong all the time, that we cannot show our vulnerability. But Psalm 34 verse 18 reminds us that God is close to those who have a broken heart. He does not expect us to be strong all the time. He wants us to trust in Him, even in our moments of weakness. When we acknowledge our need for God and turn to Him, we find true strength. This strength does not come from ourselves, but from God, who sustains us at all times. It is in the moments of greatest pain that we experience the deepest comfort from God. He is close to those who have a broken heart, and this means that He is closest to us when we need Him most. Psalm 34 verse 18 is a promise that even in the darkest nights, God is with us. He sees us, hears us, and loves us. And He is ready to save us, to lift us up, and to give us a new beginning. When we trust in God, we can be sure that He will turn our pain into victory. Life is full of ups and downs, and we will all face moments of difficulty. But what gives us hope is knowing that God is always with us. Psalm 34 verse 18 reminds us that even when our heart is broken, God is near to us. He comforts us, strengthens us, and saves us. He turns our moments of pain into moments of growth and gives us the strength we need to continue. When we trust in God, we can face any challenge with the assurance that He is by our side, guiding and sustaining us. God's promise to be close to the brokenhearted is a message of hope for all of us. It reminds us that we are never alone in our pain and that God is always ready to comfort and save us. When we turn to Him, we find the comfort and strength we need to overcome any difficulty. Psalm 34 verse 18 is an invitation to trust in God, to surrender our worries to Him, and to allow Him to guide us in all moments of life. In moments of despair, it is easy to feel lost and hopeless. But Psalm 34 verse 18 reminds us that God is always present, ready to comfort and save us. He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. When we trust in God, we find not only comfort but also new hope for the future. He turns our pain into strength and gives us the courage we need to continue. When we turn to God, we find the peace that only He can give. God never abandons us, even in the most challenging moments. Psalm 34 verse 18 reminds us that He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. This promise gives us the certainty that even when everything seems lost, God is with us. He sustains us, strengthens us, and guides us. When we trust in God, we can face any challenge with the assurance that He is by our side. He turns our pain into victory and gives us a new beginning. Psalm 34 verse 18 teaches us that God is always close to those who have a broken heart. He sees us in our pain and is ready to comfort and save us. When we turn to God, we find the comfort and strength we need to overcome any difficulty. God never abandons us. He is always by our side, ready to lift us up and give us a new beginning. When we trust in God, we find the peace that only He can give. He turns our sorrow into joy and gives us the strength we need to continue. Psalm 34 verse 18 is a message of hope for all of us. It reminds us that even in the most challenging moments, God is with us. He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. When we trust in God, we find the comfort and strength we need to overcome any difficulty. He sustains us, strengthens us, and guides us. When we turn to God, we find the peace that only He can give. God turns our pain into victory and gives us a new beginning. Psalm 34 verse 18 reminds us that God is always close to those who have a broken heart. He sees us in our pain and is ready to comfort and save us. When we turn to God, we find the comfort and strength we need to overcome any difficulty. God never abandons us. He is always by our side, ready to lift us up and give us a new beginning.